The president at one point wasn't happy earlier today about a report he saw regarding the online retail giant.
What if I told you the world's biggest online store, yes, on that, the Amazon, might be thinking about saying goodbye to America? Sounds insane? Buckle up, because this rabbit hole goes deep. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a rumor that's shaking Wall Street and making coffee fly out of Silicon Valley's collective nose. Word on the digital street is that Amazon, yes, the retail juggernaut that brings you everything from bulk toilet paper to existential dread, might be toying with the idea of exiting the United States. It sounds like something out of a dystopian thriller or a fever dream cooked up by an economist on too much Red Bull. But whether it's fiction, prediction, or a flashing red warning light for global trade, it's worth exploring. So grab your ethically sourced snack and let's unpack this wild scenario. Let's begin with what sparked this madness: tariffs. Yep, the same dry-sounding term that usually makes your eyes glaze over during news segments. But think of tariffs not as taxes, but as economic landmines. Designed to protect domestic industries, in reality, they often turn into global food fights, with everyone ending up bruised. Now enter the man who treated tariffs like a political hammer, former President Donald Trump. His approach to trade was blunt, bold, and sometimes bizarre. He slapped tariffs on steel, aluminum, and a shopping list of Chinese goods, all in the name of bringing jobs back and asserting economic dominance. But what if, just if, those policies were aimed at someone bigger, someone like Amazon? You know, the everything store that's practically a country in itself. Amazon thrives on low-cost imports and ultra-efficiency. Many of its in-house products, like Amazon Basics, are sourced from abroad, especially China. Hit those imports with a 25%, 50%, or even higher tariff, and suddenly that $12 phone charger costs them a lot more. Now Amazon has a problem. Eat the cost and tank its profits, or pass it on to you and risk losing its competitive edge. It's the corporate equivalent of choosing between a punch in the face or a kick in the ribs. But here's where it gets really juicy: the speculation. Imagine a world where Amazon says enough is enough and decides to pack up and leave the US for good. Headlines would explode, Twitter would combust, and somewhere in a gold-trimmed office, Trump would probably launch into an all-caps tirade of biblical proportions. He'd call it fake news, blame everyone from Hunter Biden to the moon, and brand Amazon traitorous. Meanwhile, Bezos would be sailing away on a titanium yacht shaped like a QR code. But could Amazon actually do it? That's the billion-dollar question. Logistically, moving Amazon's infrastructure, hundreds of fulfillment centers, massive data operations, complex delivery networks, is like relocating a small galaxy. Canada, too small. Europe, complicated regulations. Mars, too soon. And let's not forget AWS, Amazon Web Services, the digital backbone of half the internet. That alone makes moving even one server a nightmare. But for the sake of argument, let's say they did. What happens then? First, small businesses would be gutted. Amazon Marketplace isn't just a convenience, it's the entire livelihood of thousands. If Amazon operates from abroad or limits US access, those businesses are toast. Second, you and I, the humble consumers, would feel the pain. Slower delivery times, higher prices, fewer choices. Say goodbye to your emergency inflatable T-Rex suit showing up in 2 days. Competitors like Walmart and Target would rush in. But recreating Amazon's scale and logistics? That's not a sprint. It's a decade-long marathon with hurdles made of molten lava. And if Amazon leaves, it doesn't just hurt your shopping habits. It shakes the very core of American e-commerce and tech dominance. It's not just about packages, it's about power. Imagine waking up to a world where Amazon is no longer a domestic entity, where its servers, warehouses, and strategic operations are controlled from foreign soil. The consequences of such a seismic shift would be immediate and far-reaching. Amazon is not merely a shopping platform. It is the beating heart of America's online economy. Its departure wouldn't just cause delays in deliveries or inconvenience consumers looking for the next-day arrival of their household essentials. It would represent a fundamental fracture in the infrastructure of U.S. commerce. Amazon is deeply interwoven into the fabric of how modern Americans do business. From mom-and-pop sellers in rural towns using Amazon Marketplace to reach customers, to massive enterprises relying on Amazon Web Services, AWS, to power their digital operations, the ecosystem Amazon has built touches virtually every corner of the economy. If the company were to relocate, this entire network would be disrupted. Small businesses would suddenly face international logistics hurdles, higher costs, and decreased visibility. For many, Amazon isn't just a platform, it's their primary, sometimes only source of revenue. Removing that access would be economically devastating. So here we are at the edge of a hypothetical cliff. Amazon leaving the US is probably fantasy for now. But beneath this wild what-if lies a serious warning. Trade wars and reckless policies can carry real consequences. Stability and smart governance matter. Because if you push too hard on the giants that hold up the digital economy, don't be surprised when they decide to walk away. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into economic what-ifs, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Drop a comment below. Do you think Amazon would ever actually leave the US? Or is this just internet panic at its finest? Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay skeptical. What happens when America's iconic auto industry faces a crisis, not from overseas rivals, but from its own government? The shockwaves from this trade battle are shaking Detroit to its core. It started quietly, just murmurs behind factory walls in Detroit. But soon the whispers turned into a roar that echoed through the heart of American manufacturing. The Ford Motor Company, a towering emblem of American grit and industry, faced a blow nobody saw coming. Factories shut down, assembly lines froze, and thousands of workers were sent home. The culprit? Not a foreign competitor, but tariffs imposed right here in Washington. Before we dive deeper, smash that like button to help us reach more viewers and support the channel. On May 17th, Ford stunned the nation. Several of its historic American assembly plants went silent. The Chicago facility where thousands of Ford Explorers and Lincoln Aviators once rolled off the line, and Michigan's plant that made Broncos and Rangers all came to a halt. Workers were told to go home and wait, with no clear return date. The cause behind this shutdown was tariffs, not protective ones designed to bring jobs back, but punitive taxes that ended up crushing American factories. President Trump's trade policy slapped a sweeping 25% tax on imported parts and vehicles, aimed at China and Mexico. But instead, it struck at the heart of U.S. production. Ford forecasted a staggering $1.5 billion hit in earnings for 2025. An unprecedented financial blow, even for a giant like Ford. This was only the beginning. Across the Midwest, the fallout spread. General Motors scrambled to adjust production, cutting hundreds of jobs while quietly moving some truck assembly back to Indiana. Stellantis, Chrysler and Dodge's parent company, idled plants in Canada and Mexico, but the pain quickly reached Michigan and Indiana, where 900 workers lost their jobs overnight. Ford fought back, raising prices on the Mustang, Mach-E, Maverick, and Bronco Sport, all built in Mexico, by nearly $2,000 each to offset the tariffs. But customers felt the pinch, dealerships struggled, and Ford's efforts weren't enough. Before we move on, don't forget to subscribe to support this channel. Behind closed doors, Ford executives warned more cuts were coming. Tariffs increased costs across the board, from steel to electronics. The Lincoln Nautilus, imported from China, became too expensive to sell competitively, forcing Ford to stop exporting to China altogether. The trade war was no longer a theoretical threat, it was a harsh reality. When reporters pressed President Trump on Ford's crisis, he dismissed it as expected, doubling down that production should have returned to the US years ago. These tariffs are about America first, he said. That statement sent chills through every auto executive's office. If Ford could fall and the president didn't flinch, who would be next? Signs of distress multiplied. Stellantis stopped SUV production in Mexico for a whole month. Parts stopped arriving, assembly lines stalled, morale tanked, and layoffs hit 5 stamping plants in the U.S. unions, long silent, began openly criticizing management. This wasn't just pressure, it was a fight for survival. GM's Fort Wayne plant, which builds Silverado and Sierra pickups, tried to push back by adding shifts and rehiring workers. Their goal? Build more trucks on U.S. soil and dodge tariffs. But the victory was temporary. Nissan canceled U.S. orders for SUVs built in Mexico. Toyota slowed deliveries, Honda hiked prices, and the storm kept gathering strength. Then came the customers. In April, new car prices jumped over 2.5% in a single month, the sharpest spike in years. Buyers rushed to lock in deals before prices climbed again. But dealership inventories thinned, deliveries slowed, and popular models vanished from lots. Ford tried a desperate move, offering employee pricing to all customers, usually a last resort, to keep sales alive as costs soared. But this was a stopgap, not a solution. Supply chains faltered at every turn. Parts from Mexico became 25% more expensive. Canadian-assembled cars faced border taxes, and components from China, including crucial chips and batteries, were slapped with duties up to 30%. The pressure squeezed manufacturers to the breaking point. Ford's CEO Jim Farley called it the fairest fight in decades, trying to sound optimistic. But behind the scenes, the company slashed forecasts and scrambled to explain to investors why a brand that builds nearly 80% of its vehicles in America was bleeding losses. Layoffs hit cities like Kokomo and Toledo, where workers spared during the last recession finally felt the cuts. Entire shifts vanished, factories paused, and communities reliant on those paychecks, the diners, grocery stores, repair shops, started feeling the strain. Governors called emergency meetings. Labor boards issued warnings about rising unemployment. Mayors pleaded with Washington for relief, but the tariffs stayed firm. Wall Street watched in shock. Auto stocks tumbled, suppliers' shares crashed, and analysts warned the industry could lose over 1 million sales this year if tariffs continued. Washington's message? No changes. The Trump administration insisted the pain was temporary, that factories would reopen and companies would bounce back. But inside the industry, no one was holding their breath. Ford reconsidered future product launches. GM reassigned engineers. Stellantis froze hiring. And that whisper behind factory doors grew into a roar. Is this what America First really means? The North American auto industry was once a seamless, well-oiled machine, stretching across 3 countries, thousands of suppliers, and producing tens of millions of vehicles annually. Now that system is breaking apart. Ford and GM can't simply move all production stateside overnight. These supply chains took decades to build and optimize. Undoing them is not only costly, but risky. Still, tariffs force companies to make decisions not about efficiency, but survival. Shift production here, pause shipments there, cancel orders, raise prices, hope for the best. Through it all, workers are caught in the crossfire, jobs gained in one state lost in another. It's a shell game, and the pieces are running out. The political divide widens. Trump says the trade war is worth it. Democrats say the cost is too high. And in the middle, the workers watching their paychecks shrink, their futures fade. What's next? Retaliation looms. China has already hit American cars with tariffs. Exports dry up. Overseas markets shift to Korean and European brands. American cars are becoming too expensive to sell, both abroad and maybe soon at home. Ford isn't gone, not yet. But after decades of being a pillar of American industry, it's staggering. And the workers who built this legacy, raised families on those wages, are left asking the question no one wants to answer. Was it worth it? If you found this story eye-opening, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is the future of America's auto industry? And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world. Thanks for watching. See you next time.